Welcome to Gumball Love. I'm Melissa Ledger, professional relationship coach, creator of Gumball Love and the Back to You Academy. If you're ready to stop the cycle of toxic men, get through the breakup once and for all, and finally get back to you, you are in the right place. This journey is about healing your heart, and you are encouraged to take the pace that is just right for you. In the process, you will build a foundation of confidence and strength that will make you unshakable, I promise. So get ready to level up your mindset and your lifestyle as you awaken the seeds of greatness just waiting to burst into full bloom. Let's do this. Okay, we are finally live. We've been talking about doing this podcast for, what, almost a year?
Yeah, I think so.
You have finally made the cut to be on the Gumball Love podcast. So this is podcast 111, and we met on November 11th, 2014. Welcome to the podcast, my love of my life.
I assume you're going to introduce me at some point by name, right?
Maybe. What is your name?
Iain Patrick Kale Roberts. Would you like my social security number as well?
Yes, please, so everyone can write it down.
Date of birth and country of origin.
Yeah, so that was the huge thing of where you're from. We are 6 days apart. We're both April birthdays, April 13th, April 19th.
Both Aries, which is something to consider. Anyways.
I don't really feel like that is a thing. We do not butt heads with us. Do you think we butt heads like an Aries?
No, not butt heads, but definitely strong, independent spirits.
Yes.
And you know that about yourself. So. Let's not try to take these listeners on a ride here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so where are you from? Tell everyone where you're from. What do you do? All the countries you're from, and why my family still cannot figure out where you're from.
Well, I don't think it's really that complicated, but I was born in the UK, in just outside of London, and I was originally, I guess I was going to be an American, but my parents decided that I personally would want to grow up to be an Englishman, so they flew from Connecticut, or the New York tri-state area, sent my mom back to UK to have me born over there, and then 6 months later moved to the US. So I lived about 10 years in Greenwich, Connecticut. My dad worked in New York. And then we moved to Bermuda in 1987, and I was about age 10. And so my parents split up, shortly thereafter. Pretty ugly situation, unfortunately. So, kind of fractured family. My sister went off to school over in England. I was kind of sent off to school in Canada, and we kind of scattered to the four winds of the earth. So eventually came back to Bermuda, graduated high school, went to college at Clemson University, South Carolina.
Go Tigers!
Yeah. And then went back to Bermuda. Started working for an insurance brokerage there, doing large corporate insurance, and then transferred to New York after about 3 years, and did about 14 years in New York City, from one island to the other, from Bermuda to Manhattan. And then in 2014, I guess it was October 17th, it was my dad's birthday. He got sick, had a stroke, same day, weirdly, that his birthday, 75th birthday, and a hurricane had hit the island. So I couldn't get a hold of him for about a week. And then finally, when I did, I found out that he'd had a stroke. So this was less than, I think, 3 or 4 weeks before you and I had originally met in person. And so we were talking, I think, we were actually starting to talk via text and phone right around that time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but not, definitely, 11/11, November 11th.
Yes, we didn't actually meet in person until 11/11/2014.
Yeah, so, just at that time, had a lot going on in my life, from family and then just from my own personal standpoint. I think kind of two things coincided, but I really needed to get out of New York City. I was just living this lifestyle of going out and partying and, trying to manage work and trying to figure out what I was trying to do with my life, what kind of future I wanted for myself, and I really didn't know, and I was just sort of like living from day to day. And at that point, obviously in the second week of November in 2014, we met in person, and wow, what an experience that was.
Especially since my eyes went black. So for me, I had only been in New York since February of 2014. And I don't think I went on... I think you may have been the first date I went on in New York.
No, how precious.
I think it was. I've really thought back, and I think I got on Match.com. I didn't get on Match.com right away. I got there. I had gone to LA right away. I moved to New York, and then I was going to LA to work on building Gumball Love. So it was like the very beginning. And then, I don't think I went out with anyone until I met you, because I was still like in that doing live broadcasts and trying to build my website and get it all launched. And you were like this guy that was this big corporate executive, and he lives on the Upper West Side. And I'm like, still like...
Fraud alert.
But
I really did not have it all together like that. But I know,
I mean, but you
we
did
know what
kind of
appearances
too.
are, right?
I mean, but you had quite a bit together. I mean,
oh, yeah.
It's hard to live in New York for as long as you did, get the job you had. And then, and I had dated, no offense to the guys that I dated in Nebraska or guys that go on dates in Nebraska, but no one had shown up in a suit, even in New York. So when you showed up in a suit, being 6'7", so I could wear heels on a date, being when I'm about 6 feet in heels. And I think it was like the moment you walked in the door, I got there literally seconds before you, and I thought I was late. So I got in the restaurant, and I'm looking for you, and you came into the door on my right side. And when you came in, it was like a small foyer. There really isn't a foyer. You like walk in the door, and the hostess stands right there. Mm-hmm. And when you walked in, I looked up, and you were so close to my face, and it was like and this is where I have to I had my movie moment. And I hate saying this because I preach that we can't pursue a fantasy, but I can see how those moments are written about, because you were the one. And when I saw you, it was like, oh my God, and my body went through something that I couldn't explain, because I just, I felt like I was under some kind of a spell, which thankfully I kept myself under control. But I was like, Melissa, get control of yourself. But I could not look into your eyes. Every time I looked at your eyes, I would start to not be able to pay attention to what you were saying. You have this deep voice and this tall guy in a suit. And I think it was. So I was like, I'm dating this guy. He's worked at this huge company in the Upper West, and he lives on the Upper West Side. And then I just had this imagining of what life was like on the Upper West Side. So this is where
this is me shaking my head and rolling my eyes, because as I find out about this years later, she describes it, any of you that have taken the quiz, the Gumball Guy quiz, which
most haven't. It's coming out soon.
It's coming to a computer near you, but which I helped out quite a lot with, actually. So
you typed in every single
really
question.
Interesting. But yes. One of the questions under the Arouse Me Guy is, does he stare at your mouth or other parts of your body that are like your privates? And so I come to find out years later, here she is telling me, I just couldn't stop staring at your lips, at your mouth. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
No, I just couldn't look into your eyes. Then I was forced to look at your mouth. No, I was looking at your mouth, too. Because you think about, could I kiss this guy? Was it really a creeper? I was Arouse Me Gumball girl. Yeah, I was
But
just
not
like,
really.
oh, look at those lips. I want to kiss those lips and those blue eyes. And like, you could just, you know, I was like, oh my God. Yeah. So I was having all those feelings, and I want girls to know, like, you can it makes me realize you can have all those feelings and you can think all those things. And it's okay if my pupils completely dilated. What was that like?
Yeah, well, I didn't never met anybody with black eyes before, but you know, from my perspective, I meet this girl. She's beautiful. She's really funny and fun and intelligent and very thoughtful and giving, which was one of the things that we kind of talk about a little bit. Is she told me at that time that she did relationship coaching and helped girls out, and to me, that's very heartwarming because, there's very few people that do that kind of thing. And the sense I got at the time is that it was kind of like a side thing. You were just helping girls out. So it wasn't like a profession. So you probably really weren't getting, any financial benefit out of it. So it's like, oh, that's just an amazing thing to do, to be helping other people going through difficult relationships.
Yes, and that's exactly what you said. You were like, that's amazing. And every other guy I ever mentioned it to, they're like, so are you analyzing me right now? And they would make it about them. And then I could never talk about my passion because they would always think, oh, well, now I'm on a date with a dating coach.
Yeah. But as we know, and have come to find out over the last year, as I've actually, dove into this complicated world of behavioral psychology, really is kind of the way I look at it, is that with gumball guys and gumball people, it's always about them. And whatever you say, they try to interpret it in how it impacts them. And it's never really about a genuine interest in what it is that you're doing or you're saying. They're just, depending on, the type of guy that it is, he's just either waiting to speak himself and tell his story and say how great he is, or get you to dance for him and be the entertain me kind of guy, or something about attention towards him. And it's never about kind of that type of relationship where you're genuinely interested in the other person. Like, wow, what a shock, like I really like this person and I love this person because of who they are and who I am with them, not, how they fit into my own life, and trying to make that all about themselves. So that's, anyways, it was quite a segue there, but
yeah, I know.
So we're back down to you staring at my mouth and
back to my black eyes.
Yeah.
And me floating. I literally felt like I was floating on the ceiling. And you're so smart that I don't even know what we were talking about, but whatever it was, I was like, I do not have any intelligent responses in my head. I have no idea what to say. I kind of felt like I was on a business meeting where the conversation was over my head, and I was like, and you were talking about art, and and I was like, oh my God, I have a real adult man in front of me. And I think a lot of girls can relate. We aren't really dating adults. We're dating it's like they're all man children. It's like I'm in front of a man child. So when you're having like a real conversation, because you didn't look at my mouth. If you did, I didn't see. Probably because I was in another alternate universe
like
trying
you were
to.
on some kind of like narcotics.
I guess, yes. And then I've told the story a million times, right? It was like, I went to the bathroom to call my sister to be like, I have to like have a conversation. And then I left my phone on the little booth next to me. It was like right next to my leg. And I was like, crap, I don't have my phone. So I had to like look in the mirror and be like, listen, get it together. So
just start yelling at yourself like your Navy drill instructor. Like, Ledger, get it together.
I was like, oh my God. Yeah. So
Sailor.
But we bonded over our love for Scandal, which oddly we always talked about. We need to finish watching Scandal, and here we are 7 years later. We're actually finishing Scandal. So, but we both loved that show. We loved the characters, and I was like, finally a topic I can talk about, not sound stupid.
Yeah. Oh, and just another little segue here, but the irony of rewatching that now is the amount of this type of behavior that you talk about, that you've kind of like discovered, the stereotypical type of flavors of the guy, or even, the women do the same thing in this show, and they act out in the kind of like the 8 flavors of that behavior, and it's just really spooky. I mean, when you said, "Oh, you got to watch 50 Shades of Grey with me," which I did, so we'll do another episode and kind of like analyze that one, but.
You have to watch a little bit more of Sex and the City too.
Yeah.
Which I think you watched the shows, but like looking at it from the Gumball perspective. But yeah, you watched 50 Shades of Grey, and then I made you watch the first Twilight. That's the only one I've been able to get you to watch. I don't think you're going to watch New Moon.
Just straight up awful. But I again, kind of a little bit of a segue for the folks listening. I mean, I guess maybe let's just finish the story. So
okay, finish the story on the
date. So the date, when it was amazing, but I restrained myself at the end of the evening, just because I was like, Melissa's such a wonderful girl. Even though I did want to kiss her,
and you missed a moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but fantasies do come around in other ways, I guess, later on. But so then we went on our second date, which was quite entertaining as well, given the circumstances. So this is, I don't know, this is December, sometime in November too, I think, right?
Yeah, it was November 11th, but then we didn't go on a second date till, I think it was a couple weeks later, but I was dying. I was like, oh my God, I wanted to go out with you so bad, but I was trying not to act like too interested. And so then, and I did want you to kiss me so bad. And I was like, okay, if we go to I'm going to suggest a movie, which New Yorkers never go to. And so we went to the third Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Which I can't remember what it was called, but.
Yeah, well, apparently I missed the second Hunger Games. But all that being said, in that interim, again, this is just a little bit more from my own backstory. I was living in just such a chaotic lifestyle and world of work and going out and entertaining for work 4 or 5 nights a week, out on the weekends. It was exhausting. It's just like kind of an all-consuming type scenario. And, since then had to be sort of pretty honest with myself about, like, that lifestyle was something I just totally needed to get away from and really focus on what kind of a person I wanted to be. Because I was, I think you would say I have a very kind heart.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very loving, as we know.
Yes.
But I was trying to sort of put up this more hardened exterior because I'd been in New York for almost 15 years, and you kind of have to have that. Especially in the world that I was dealing in, you kind of have to develop a lot of these type of behaviors that make you look kind of cool, calm, collected on the outside, but inside it's just turmoil and chaos and just trying to like bouncing around and living from day to day and not really having any idea of what it is that you want or what you're looking for. And you go on 100 first dates and, it kind of goes nowhere because you're just sort of tied into a lifestyle more than anything. I mean, I had some serious relationships in New York, but, ultimately, my lifestyle was just not conducive to that type of thing. So those didn't work out, but I always knew that I wanted to have a very kind of long-term, meaningful relationship into marriage and family and everything else, but I just really didn't know how to get there. And I was just sort of, the analogy I kind of think of with a lot of people in life is that we're all kind of like cast adrift on our own little, like the Titanic is sank and, everyone's got like they're on top of their own little door where it was a Jack Dawson, right? It's like hanging on to whatever her name.
If only everyone could have had their own door.
Exactly.
Rose.
Yes. So, anyways, but we're all kind of like, tossed around at sea, and we're all just trying to like make our own way. And, as we kind of grow up through life, we've kind of adapted some, behaviors that are not maybe the sort of most healthy behaviors. But it takes kind of like that level of self-reflection, and in a lot of cases it may take kind of like a sudden tragic event or something to really spur you to action to make a change in your life. And for me, I guess we'll get back to the second date in a second, but this was kind of like that turning point for me. Had happened, unfortunately, before I had met Melissa, and I kind of ended up leaving. I left New York in early 2015, but, I had maintained and still had at that time, like, very strong feelings for Melissa. I really wanted to try to make it work, but I couldn't do it in New York City with everything going on in my life and having to stay there and try to deal with my dad's sickness. I just wasn't going to be able to handle that, as well as, take care of my own kind of, path forward. Mm-hmm. So
it was just like overwhelming lifestyle. Your dad had gotten sick. It was just like the wrong timing. And it was so confusing for me because I was like, everything is so synced up with us. Like I could just feel something so special. But I also could see you were inconsistent. You were not available to me. And so here I was creating Gumball Love I wouldn't say it's infancy because I had been at it in creation mode, but I was really pushing it out to the world. And it was like the very beginning. And what I've told the girls on this podcast before is, had you and I been able to make it work back then, I don't know what Gumball Love would be today. And it was like, you were not ready. You were like, my life is chaos. And even though you were this big executive and you were living in New York, and on the outside, it looked like, the fairy tale. On the inside, you had work to do, but I had work to do too. And so sometimes, like now I see it, and the timing was, we were supposed to meet. And this 11/11 thing, I know a lot of people see 11/11. But I never saw 11/11s. I never had a thing with numbers ever until I met you. And then after that day, I kept seeing 11/11. And I remember praying about it and thinking it was like God telling me that what I felt was like, everything's going to be okay. When I would see that, it would be like this reassuring, and thinking I knew it meant something, but I wasn't sure what exactly it meant. But I can look back now and I can see you weren't ever like a player. You never seemed like a player to me, but it was like, how do I get a freaking second date with this guy? So a lot of girls are out there like, I want to see him again. We've had these great dates. Like, what's going on? And sometimes it's just, you're not ready, or there were other things that had nothing to do with me. And so I think I probably sat on the other side thinking, oh my God, is it, he's with somebody else that's better, and you can't decide or whatever. And that wasn't what was going on. You just had too much going on, and you were like, and then you ended up, I don't know, the last time I saw you was in January of 2015. And then I obsessed over you. Like I can't remember when it was, but shortly after that, I was like, I'm going to obsess over him. And we were friends on Facebook. And I was like, I blocked you on Facebook, not because you were stalking me, but because I was stalking you, kind of. Like, I was like looking at what you were doing, and I had all these feelings. And I could tell you had feelings for me too. But I just was like, okay, well, obviously he's not in a place he can do something about it. And so I'm saying this part of the story because here we are together now, but back then I didn't know. And there's a lot of girls that are at a place where they don't know what's going on. They have feelings for a guy, but I blocked you on Facebook, and I like literally, I think I even sent you didn't I send you like a goodbye text message? Like, look, I don't know what's going on, but I gotta move on, because I knew I had to do Gumball Love, and I had to be true to what I was saying, what I believed, and I couldn't like hang and wait. And I had no idea what was going on your side, but I did what I knew what was best. And it was freaking hard because I'd never met anyone I was that attracted to, that interested in. Like, it was just like, it was almost like, anybody else felt like, it was okay, but nothing exciting, nothing like that captivated me, nothing that, it was more fun to date in New York than it was in Omaha for sure, but nope, nothing like you and I ever before or since that. And so that was annoying and it was like I was constantly comparing our experience. But the point of the story is we both had work to do. And I had not danced yet. I had not done one live broadcast for Gumball Love. And those things were life-changing. And so this is why I always teach my girls to do work while you're waiting for the guy, but like, don't you think had we not done what we did when we were apart, we would not be able to connect. We would never have connected the way we did the second time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had that same, feeling in my own heart about you. And I was like, wow, this girl's amazing on every front. And she's exactly who I want to be with. But, I was just in a very tough spot, sort of where things that have been thrown at me in life and, the situations that lifestyle that I had like adopted. And I just was like, I gotta get out of New York and I gotta go take care of my dad. And in the back of my mind, I was just kind of, you can't sort of bring this girl into your life only to disappear in a couple months, which you're going to kind of have to because you're going to be gone from New York. So, that was really tough time for me to have such strong feelings towards you, but at the same time, knowing that I wasn't going to be there and I couldn't be there both, emotionally and physically as well, right? Because I was leaving. So,
and that was one thing that was different about you is that even though you weren't always available, you didn't try to have sex with me. You didn't try to take advantage. You knew how I felt. You knew how I felt. It would have been very easy for you to like put pressure on me in that way or come into my life and come out. But you always respected me. You never made false promises. And you let me know, look, I'm going through a lot and like I have feelings, but you didn't bring me into that. You did respect me. And I remember thinking, this is different than other guys. Other guys are like making promises and they're there 1 minute and they're gone the next. And you didn't do that to me. And so I had peace about like, I knew when I saw you that last time I knew, and this story, but a lot of people don't like, I knew when I was walking away, I thought, this is not the end, but it's going to be a while. And I don't know when I'll see him again, but I had a peace. Like God gave me that peace in my heart that it's meant to be. And I just need to have faith. And I didn't know I would have to have faith for 5 years. It's like, God, could you just shorten the timeline a little bit? But, I don't know. Like for some people, it could be 6 months. Some people, it's some clients, I'm annoyed. I coach them one time and then they find somebody like the next week. And it's like, why couldn't it have been like that for me? Yeah. So one client that Iain has coached personally, if you're listening, we're like, that's super annoying that, literally she signs up for one package. We did 3 calls. And on the 3rd call, she's like, well, I kind of met somebody. And I'm like, I think this is her guy. And so sometimes it can be that fast, but for other people, it can take a while. But I mean, I feel like there's no way we could be together now had we not had that space for both of us to grow in our own lives separately. Because you did tons of work on yourself. You did need to get out of the lifestyle. You did. You spent time in the UK and Canada and Bermuda and you spent time with family. I mean, planted how many trees in Canada?
Yeah, lots. There's thousands.
Thousands of trees in Canada. I mean,
but to me, I kind of look at that what you're saying in that period of time, and just sort of like, you got to look at what the other person in the relationship is, not just what they're saying, but what they're doing, right? Like, are they being consistently inconsistent, so to speak? If they're saying, 1 minute they want this and they want that and they want the other, and then the next moment they're just totally vaporized. I knew that I wanted to be with you, but I didn't try to tell you that I'm going to be here and, everything's going to be wonderful and we're going to get married in 3 weeks and go off to honeymoon in Paris and whatever else. So, because I knew, and I had not just the love and the feelings for you, but I had that so much respect for just you and your feelings to not to be that way, right? There are a lot of guys out there that are not like that. They will sit there and they will string people along for weeks and months and years. Yeah, although I will admit, this is not really admission, but it's just kind of like to talk about it because it was funny. But the first date that we were supposed to have.
Oh, God.
So this is another little segue here, but
this is where I really.
So
you're so lucky you're sitting here.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, you almost lost the entire thing. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
But it was all legitimate. Sort of. Anyways, so we were supposed to meet for our first date, but I had through my the industry that I worked in New York, I had a bunch of guys talking trash about who could eat chicken wings faster than the other guys. And so, whatever, I think it was like a Tuesday night, that we were supposed to meet. And I had kind of been, I wouldn't say pressured, probably.
It was your idea.
Well, okay, that's just fine. But whatever. Anyway,
it was his idea to have the chicken wing eating contest.
I ended up being the judge and MC of a chicken wing eating contest in the East Village of New York with 300 or 400 people, and there was a megaphone involved, and it was
there's a megaphone involved.
A whole situation. But anyways, the point of that story is that when I told Melissa that, unfortunately I was not going to be able to make it that Tuesday night for a date, I told her, she says that I said hot dog eating contest.
You totally said hot dog eating contest.
Whatever, a food eating contest. I told the truth because I wanted to, it sounded like the most ridiculous type of
I was so annoyed. I was like,
excuse,
did I just get dumped for a hot dog eating contest? Oh my God, you're rescheduling because you have to judge a hot dog eating contest. I was like, I should just not go out with this guy. I got deprioritized for a freaking hot dog, or now we know chicken wing eating contest.
But the point of that, the sort of vignette is, if the guy says he's gonna, if the guy's giving you excuses about I'm not available because of this and that and the other thing, then, ultimately people do, you can give people a little bit of grace in terms of I can't make it because I'm, slammed at work or I have a family thing or whatever. But when you are 100% deprioritized for a consistent, period of time, then that the guy's just
I think it's a tough sell with everyone listening about the chicken wing eating contest.
I understand, but we had never met. The only thing I knew about you is you were from Nebraska.
That's true.
It wasn't I've been on a date with you and fallen in love and then dumped you for a chicken.
But I had already fallen in love with your profile. I was marrying you before I met you. I totally was. I was because you were the unicorn search, which a lot of people know, but if you don't, I literally put every single thing I want. I was like, this is New York. You were my first date. I know now because I did the unicorn search. I was like, I want 6'6" and above. I wanted never married, no kids. I was like, I wonder if I can have somebody who's never been married like me, never had kids like me, and Christian, same religion. I wanted all these things. I don't even remember all the things you can put in Match.com, hobbies, interests, whatever.
Not incarcerated.
Not incarcerated. I knew I wanted a guy who liked sports, even though I don't love watching sports all the time. I wanted a sports-minded guy. I didn't want the guy that doesn't know what is going on when there's a football game. I find that very I just personally, I don't want to watch football with you, but I like that you know what's happening in football. I don't know. It's weird. But anyway, I checked everything off and 6 dudes in all of Manhattan showed up. And I was like, really? 6 people? That's it? I'm that picky. It's Manhattan. But the height definitely does eliminate a lot of people. So I was like, I had too much excitement about meeting you. I think I started getting ready at like 2:00 in the afternoon. Our date wasn't until probably 7, but I was just like, I'm straightening my hair and I'm picking out the outfit.
But I did make up for it on the second date. We went to go see a movie, The Hunger Games Part 3. So I'm waiting there in the lobby of the movie theater in Lincoln Center. And
no.
Melissa is late, or like, the movie's about to start, and she's nowhere to be found. And, it's very cold outside. I think it was probably one of those, like, 15-degree days.
It was December.
Yeah, nights or whatever. And
I was in Rockefeller Center. I was at a Trish McEvoy makeup event, and Trish McEvoy herself was there. I thought I had plenty of time, but I did not realize I would not be able to catch a taxi. So I'm like, oh my God, I cannot get to Lincoln Center from Rockefeller Center to you. So you're standing there waiting.
Yeah, and it's freezing, but, I got no problem with the cold. But so here she comes, rolling. I didn't actually see her roll up, but, she comes inside. She's freezing cold. So, put my arms around her with the jacket and just like an icicle. And I'm like, where have you been? Did you just take a rickshaw to get up here? Like one of those pedicabs? I was like, there's only one reason, because you didn't walk in those shoes. So there's only one way for you to be that cold. It's like you just jumped on
And it was like $50 to go 5 minutes. But there were no taxis, and the rickshaw showed up, and I was like, this is my only choice. I finally get a second date with this guy, and now I have to take a rickshaw to our second
It's like so absurd. So anyway, but as I'm like hugging her and my jacket is kind of like around her, I didn't know she noticed at that point. But when we finally got inside and got into our seats, I guess
there were only 2 seats left. It was opening night of Hunger Games.
So so we sit down, and then I turn to Melissa and I'm like, you want a glass of wine? And she's like, what are you talking about?
You brought wine in here?
Yeah,
You're like, of course.
Yeah, so I had like a bottle of wine and some plastic cups inside my jacket, and I was just like, break that out. And we were like sitting there drinking
Cabernet.
No, it was Sauvignon Blanc out of plastic cups in the movie theater. But
I was like, do you have cups? And you were like, of course.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, who brings wine?
But
that went over very well with a lot of my friends. Guys don't do that. So any guys listening, bottle of wine in the theater.
All class, no stash.
That was a great move. Yeah.
But again, it was another one of those. It was a great experience. I became even more, I guess as I look back on it, like in love with you at that time. But, I was still in that world of chaos. And, I could not sort of drag Melissa into a place where I knew I could not fulfill the commitment of the kind of, number one, the guy she deserved, and two, the kind of guy I wanted to be for her. So things just kind of like dragged on from there into January, and then, we saw each other again in January. But at that point, I was just kind of like packing up my life and getting ready to move back to Bermuda to take care of my dad. And so, we kind of touched base a little bit, on and off, but like I respected the fact that she was like, I can't do this, I can't have you kind of lingering in my life, which I totally understood, I kind of, as much as, I felt, I didn't want to let go of the idea of being with you. At the same time, I was like, I can't sort of, if I can't live up to the kind of guy that you needed, that I wanted to be for you, that you deserved, then obviously, you fast forward 5 years plus a pandemic and, whatever else later, I've been thinking about you for quite a lot for those for those years, especially sort of, 2018, 2019, when I'd kind of like got my family situation and my own personal situation kind of sorted out, and I'd really refocused my life on what it was that I wanted to do and what I wanted to, to be kind of going forward, getting out of that, like I said, that lifestyle of chaos. And, I'd help my dad, recover and move out of Bermuda for him and his wife to move up to Canada, to immigrate to the country, to, get our property set up there in the whole 9 yards. And then, there I am still thinking about Melissa. And I had actually, ironically, I had texted you in, I can't remember how long before it was, but it was your 402, your Nebraska number. Mm-hmm. But that was like, probably went to some random like local person in Nebraska and no idea who.
So you messaged me in so it would have been mid 2019.
Yeah, text message.
To the wrong number, which you didn't know. Okay. And then you added me on Facebook shortly after, right? Mm-hmm. Or did you text me again after that?
No, I think it was Facebook first, and then I texted you. Because I was like, this girl's not going to want to hear from me. So I'm like, let me just see if she would even agree to add me as a friend on Facebook. I hate that sounds like it's kind of like stupid games and whatnot, which we obviously encourage people not to play. Like, oh, are they following me on Facebook? Do they like my posts? Do they look at my whatever? You know what I mean?
But when you added me, I was like, oh my God, Iain Roberts adding me as a friend. Because I had blocked you, so that meant it severed our... So then I was like, huh. So I added you, but I didn't say anything. I didn't say, oh my God, well, hey, I saw that you added me as a friend. I wanted to, but I was like, nope, I'm going to wait. And that was August.
Yeah, so August, and then I don't know how long thereafter, probably within the next day or so, I sent you a text to the number I had in my phone of yours, your Nebraska phone number, and nothing. And I was like, oh man, that's painful. But, I get it, I get why she's off doing her thing, and I'm going to continue to do my thing. And, maybe sometime in the future, she'll reach back out to me. And then, then we rolled into late December, early January. And, I had been following all the stuff going on over in East Asia with the beginnings of the pandemic and whatnot. And then, kind of totally unrelated to January 11th, sending you a Facebook Messenger, because I didn't even think about that. I was like, oh, I have her. I could just send her a message on Facebook. Like, why? I was like never a Facebook guy at all, or hadn't been for years. But so I reached out to you that way, and then you read it and then responded, and I was like, oh my God, she did reach back out to me, and then I found out it was the wrong phone number, and she was a New York area code number, So that's kind of how it started again, for us, fortuitous timing in a way. But, also it was a requirement for both, for me at least, that I had to put a lot of work into myself to be the kind of guy that I wanted to be for you, which, I look back on and, I'm so glad that I had done all that, because if we had tried to make it work in 2014, 2015, even if I had stayed in New York, it would have been really tough, and that would not have been fair on you, which is.
And I think I would have lost myself in you, just because I know how much I love you now. And it was, what is it? I know. But yeah, that's what I did notice. You were so affectionate, so loving. And also you forgot when we went to the movie, I was actually not feeling I probably had the earliest Rona. So here it was only our second date, and I was so cold because I think I had like pre-chills. I probably had a slight fever, to be completely honest. I'm drinking wine with a slight fever. And I was so freezing cold. And so I remember just like snuggling up to you and thinking, what am I doing? This is kind of weird to be like snuggling with a guy you barely know, but it felt so comfortable and normal. And I was so finally warm. I was like, I'm kind of sick and I need somebody to be warm. And you warmed me up. It was so, so wonderful. And it just felt like so natural. And even the next time we spent together, it was like, so I almost hate saying this because I know so many girls have felt similar feelings and it is not the one. And so that's why I think I wanted everyone to hear like the real story of, look, you know, we had the feelings. It wasn't the right time. You were going through a lot. I was going through a lot. I needed time to be become my own person in New York. Like being in New York was just the first step of getting somewhere outside of Nebraska and building a life that was me. And that's when I started buying flowers for myself and ballroom dancing and networking among like-minded women and becoming my own person and really, sitting in front of a microphone and doing podcasts. And I think by the time you and I reconnected, I'd probably done over 1,000 broadcasts between Periscope and other people's podcasts and my own podcast. And, you know, I was a completely different person when you met me again, you know, but anyway, just a side note, because I know my girls and I don't want people to over fantasize. So what would you tell girls right now that are like over fantasizing about the wrong guy? Like what does, because so when we reconnected, that was like, okay, this guy like had me, you know, swooning and now he's texting me. But the thing that was the biggest difference is it was consistent every day. And it was long distance, right? You were in Canada. Mm-hmm. I was in New York. And like we talked for a month and a half. And then freaking coronavirus hit. And it was hitting New York City the hardest first.
Yeah, but you know, and unfortunately at that time we were separated by a closed border, and you know, I'm not a U.S. citizen, but I like a green card holder. But they were
at the time, if you had left Canada just to come hang out with me, you wouldn't have been able to go back,
right? So
it was like, hey, I couldn't get to you, and if you came to me just to hang out for us to even just see.
Yeah, but you know what is like hang out, right? Like you know, at that point it was. I think we really just we reconnected so much more deeply on a personal, intellectual, you know, spiritual and emotional level. You know, doing it at long distance in a way that being in person might have made it certainly would have made it a little bit different.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, like you said, if I had to come to New York to come and see you, then I would have been stuck there and it would have been a whole situation. But ultimately, you know, we worked on getting you out of the city once the pandemic, like, you know, the full lockdowns went into effect. It was like, you know, back in, I guess, what was it, like April or May? I'm like, you just can't stay in your apartment for another 6 weeks, 8 weeks. You got to go somewhere and be around some people and not like around the ghost town. I took that as like a personal mission of mine was to keep you safe and make sure that you know, that I was looking out and making sure, because I could tell like you were struggling.
It was scary.
Yeah, and it was scary for me to have you there.
Yeah. And
kind of describing the empty streets and, you know, everything else. So,
yeah. And that made me feel that's where I really felt protected. And it was it was when I talk about needing a man, it was in that period of time where I was feeling protected and I was feeling like I was seeing what you were as a man. And that's what I had needed. It was like, we joke about that, whoever that guy is that talks about the hero complex, like make a guy feel like your hero. And it's like, meet the guy that is your hero. Don't try to make a guy who isn't a hero feel like it. pick the guy that does already do those things, because you were making me feel like I was being sheltered, even though we were far away from each other. You were looking at all of the, I mean, at that point it was the first stay-at-home order. I'd never heard a stay-at-home order in my life. None of us had. And so all of a sudden it was like, you actually need to go get food. And that's where I cried in the grocery store, like standing there like, am I really going to be at a point where I'm running out of food? Like, nobody knew what was going to happen. And you were watching every notice and telling me, like, you know, I remember when I went to the dentist, on like when it was locked down, but I had to go get my last root canal. And you were like, don't take a cab because you didn't want me to touch anything. Yeah. So I literally walked to 3.5 miles to get my root canal, walked 7 miles round trip just so I didn't have to touch anything in an Uber.
Through Times Square, took photos with the naked cowboy in a totally vacant Times Square, like where you expected to see Will Smith and like the zombies showing up shortly thereafter.
The naked cowboy was randomly there, which I had never seen the naked cowboy my whole time in New York. And then he's the only dude there in the middle of Times Square where it was empty. It was so weird. Yeah. So, but I felt so protected. I felt like there was something different, yet I couldn't get to you. You couldn't get to me. And that became, I think I know I wouldn't have nearly been as sad or as distraught, but it was more of missing you. And I was kind of mixing that with the sadness of the pandemic. And I wanted to get to you. I didn't want to, sorry family, I wasn't trying to get to my family. I wanted to get to you and I couldn't. And I remember telling my sister, maybe I should just go to Canada. She's like, you can't just go to Canada. You don't even know this dude. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean go to Canada? I'm like, what? Because you sent me a rental car reservation. I was like, what do I do? Because we had not said anything romantic to each other. We were texting. We were talking, but we weren't talking about anything like, oh, I'm having feelings for you. It was just sort of this tension that kept building in January, because we started talking January 11th, which we have our 11. So we met on 11/11. We reconnected on 1/11, and then we were talking. But I was at the Rachel Luna Mastermind in Jacksonville when you first reached out to me, and then we just talked about political stuff, you know, events, getting to know each other kind of things, but you weren't being romantic or flirty. And I was like, okay, you've reached out to me. I had all the feelings like, W2F, dude, like what's going on? Then the pandemic hit and the lockdown started happening. And it was pre-lockdown, but it was kind of getting to that point of like, okay, something weird is happening. And then we started talking about like, what would we do if, I was like, what would I do if I had to like get out of New York? And because everyone that lives in New York City has that, you know, every apocalypse movie is filmed there. And like, you know, you have that feeling, that fear. We even talked about it in 2015. So finally, when you had I was like, what do I do? And you sent me a car reservation that would end up in Syracuse, New York, which meant you were going to come, I would come to Canada with you. And I was like, oh my God, that was like that was like a pretty grand gesture, because I was like, you would want me to come to see you? And you were like, well, yeah, I mean, you know, if it's like worst case scenario, then sure.
If that's how you were taking it at that time, I mean, you know, that was the thing, is that behind all of the getting to know each other, which clearly a lot had changed for both of us in, you know, that 5-year period of time. And that was amazing to reconnect on that level, because we hadn't been able to lay that really serious, you know, foundation on beliefs and values and interests and all the things that like a very strong emotional relationship, you know, really needs to be based on. Because if you don't share a lot of those things with your you know, your partner, your love, whatever, it's pretty hard to make it actually work at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. But, you know, inside, I'm like, my heart was like welling up and getting ready to like kind of like blow out. And you know, obviously I was thinking about you and your safety and everything, but when I suggested like, yeah, just, you know, I'll get it sorted. If you ever have to evacuate New York and you don't want to go back to Nebraska, like, you just pack up your dogs and stuff into a rental car, and here's a reservation, and just drive it to Syracuse, New York, and I'll come down and pick you up, come over the border, and then you can come stay with us up in rural Canada. But, deep down, not even deep down, kind of on the surface, was the tension that we had emotionally and everything else, that, I was having a tough time still trying to figure out, like, well, what if I say this? What if I tell her I love her? What's her response going to be after these years? And, what if I get rejected? Or what if, it's not the kind of response I'm expecting, and, or not expecting, what I'm hoping for, really. And so, yeah, I know. So mosh.
So mosh.
Yeah. But so I had to, from my own perspective, I was just like, okay, well, maybe, just kind of thinking about how I would try to help you avoid the apocalypse, but at the same time, trying to manage my own emotions around how it was that we were going to reconnect,
Yeah. Yeah. That gave me like husband vibes. I was like, oh, I want to be with him. I don't want to go home. I wanted to be with you, but it didn't make sense logically, but in my heart it did. So, of course, we just played it off like, oh, yeah, if the apocalypse happens. But deep down, I was like, oh, I looked at that car. I screenshotted that car reservation. I was like, oh my God, that's a big gesture. And then I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm dragging my dogs, who were still eating their poop, by the way. I was thinking of dragging my poop eating dogs that were puppies, that were like not potty trained, and still I'm struggling with that, which all my girls know. But yeah, I was just like, oh my God, what a shit show I would have been dragging to Canada. I was just thinking, what would that even look like? And then I remember I couldn't stand it anymore. I was like, I wanted to tell you how I felt about you, but I certainly wasn't going to do it first. I was going to make you do it. So.
Oh, the pressure.
So all I said was, are you feeling any tension on your end? And you said, yeah, but it's pretty nice, don't you think? Or kind of nice, don't you think? Kind of amazing or something. And I was like, yeah. And all I said was tension. I didn't even say what kind of tension. I just left it. I was like, I wanted to leave it so if you didn't respond the way I wanted, that all I had said was tension. So it wouldn't have been like, well, I just meant like, I don't know what I would have created, but I would have tried to back myself out of it. But I was like, he's got to be feeling something. Yeah, but you were so like stoic. I couldn't figure it out. Like you played it so cool that I was like, I am dying over here. I am like falling madly in love.
At the same time, in this discussion for future podcasts, and if I'm have the pleasure of being invited back on to talk about content and stuff, but I was scared myself about what kind of response I would get, and it's scary. And I didn't want it to seem like I wasn't trying to play games. I wasn't trying to hold back for a reason other than it's scary to admit to someone else how you're feeling.
But you did. You said my favorite line. I said, are you feeling the tension? And you said, I'm trying not to fall head over heels, but I'm stumbling quite a bit. And I was like, oh... Yeah. So then March 7th, we finally said, you said, I love you on March 7th.
I did indeed.
Yes. And it was literally, the pandemic hadn't hit. March 8th, the morning, I think it was a Saturday morning, I went to the dog park with the dogs and I was like, I'm in love. And you sent me this selfie and I was like, it was all snowy in Canada and the dogs were running around and it was like one of the last innocent New York City moments. And I had known I was in love with you, and then this stupid pandemic hit the next week and it was like lockdown and everything changed. But then we were able to talk about how we felt, and then you helped me through the pandemic, and eventually I decided to leave New York City because I just couldn't bear not being with you, so I just needed to be with family. That's ultimately like, I could have dealt with a pandemic, but not being with you made my heart so sad. that I think just being with family really helped buffer my missing you. And then we finally you just had to move here. Like, you were going to come visit. This is what's crazy. You were going to come visit me in December of 2020. And then at the last minute, we were just like, we're just going to do it. You're just going to move here. And we had not seen each other in 6 years. And it was like, all right, we found a place. And normally I wouldn't do it in this order. I'd like to date and then, like get engaged and get married and move in. But 2020 gave us challenges that we didn't expect. And so it was like, I thought it was going to be super awkward. Never lived with somebody. I thought it was going to be like weird. But you were such a take charge guy, like I always wanted. And it was like, we were buying furniture and buying a bed, putting a bed together on day one, which my cousin said, if you can assemble furniture together and survive, you're good to go, because fights happen, which I did step on the bed frame and crack one of the boards day one. So,
But, that were never, and it's not like me and it's not like you, maybe individually with other people in our past relationships, we might have had that kind of squabbly type, relationship, but it's just been amazing, babe. Like, everything has just been, every minute that I'm not with you, I'm like, oh, I wonder what Melissa's doing, I miss her right now. And it's just one of those things that people who are, in love and found the love of their life, that they say, and it doesn't really kind of make any sense unless you've felt it yourself, that, you're like, oh God, I could use some alone time away from, don't get me wrong. Like, it's good to have, you need to have your kind of independence to do your thing. But at the same time, if you like desperately think that you need to be like away from your significant other, and it's like, oh, they're too much, they're overbearing. Like, it's never been like that with us. It's been so natural, so comfortable. I never thought I would get to experience it in my life, but us being together, every day, it's just been a magical experience for me, and I'm just so thankful that we met and took kind of an untraditional route to get to where we did and where we are right now. But, and the future still holds a lot of exciting, uncertain opportunities. But I look at it as exactly that, as the adventure that we're going to take together, and where we're going to go, and where we'll end up living, and where we'll end up becoming a family together, and what it is that our future holds, and having an opportunity as well to help you, or at least to participate in this kind of help of other girls in particular. Having known so many types of guys like this, these gumball type guys, ironically, the first, couple of weeks of being here, and maybe even month, I try to wrap my mind around something in a more adversarial way at first. I argue with myself, just like one of my...
Well, we're talking about when you got here, like, we really started to talk more in depth about the content, because, the pandemic kind of slowed me down and content creation, and I kept the academy going, but it's sort of, I needed to really revamp, and it was like, okay, I really need to revamp Gumball Love, and you're here now. And so I went through a much more in-depth explanation, and that was interesting to hear your perspective, because the 8 flavors were still not quite, they were there. They were on my walls in New York, but you were the one that I always said I needed this brain to challenge the idea, not challenge me, but when you're brainstorming, you need that other person to say, like, well, wait, what about this idea? And we came up with this Is it idolize me? Is it entertain me? Is it a pity me guy? And all these flavors of attention that we've identified, you were finally that person. I would look for it in editors. I would look for it in people that would help me create content. And I didn't know it was like, no, that person's going to be the love of your life. That's actually going to be able to challenge you. And then you know when I'm writing in my voice, so I can hand you a chapter and you'll be like, yeah, I don't like it because it doesn't sound like you. And as much as it like annoys me that I just like spent hours writing that, and then I know that you're right. You're like, you're right. I struggled to write that because I wasn't really being myself. And so just that was such a huge thing. But you also did have moments where it was like, I think we all have moments where we realize, am I the gumball person in this? Or I see myself doing this and that's gross. So we don't like to see that part. Or you didn't want to admit friends or people you knew, or like, it's a struggle to, the content. I don't know, you can speak to that more of like how the content kind of annoyed you and then also made you.
Yeah, well, I think that's exactly right. Is at first we talked all throughout 2020 about the generalities of what you were doing, but once we got a place together and I started looking at this stuff, and I was just like, wow, this is like behavioral science stuff. This is really interesting. So again, kind of like back to what I was saying, is my mindset is looking at something, and I will argue with myself out loud, but sometimes Melissa thinks I'm like arguing with her. But what I'm actually doing is voicing two sides of the opinion or argument in my own voice as I talk through it. And what I came to find out through this process of working through these different type of behaviors is that, wow, this is everywhere. This is in so many relationships that I've had, friendships, family, work colleagues, classmates from school and college and whatnot. And even in, my own previous relationships. And I was just like, this is unbelievably, at first I was like, this has got to just be kind of fluky, maybe some kind of, I didn't think like that per se, but I thought, well, let me see where I can find the holes in this, because that's kind of how I would attack a problem. And, the more we went into it, the more it kind of refined through. And as you were teaching me, I was just sort of absorbing it. And it's just like, this is like unbelievable insight into human behavior. And to me, I don't care if it's your mother, your brother, your cousin, your sister, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, there is this behavior, this gumball, attention seeking, it's all about me behavior everywhere. And it's actually been, to me, a really revealing insight into this is something that could legitimately change perceptions about how people conduct relationships, right? Whether it's, are you engaging in a true, intimate sort of transformational relationship where it's the give and take is there, and that you're doing things for not, somebody's not trying to game the system and always trying to get ahead and be on one side of the transaction, or are the people like genuinely interested and, caring about what the other person's feeling and what they're going through and how they can help, and taking a genuine interest in what they're doing, versus, like I said, doing it to just like, oh, they will act a certain way to get a response from me, to trigger me to give them the response that they want, and to train me to behave in a certain way, because that's, then I'm focusing my attention back on them. And that was, to me, was truly amazing. So you showed me a social media profile. I can tell you exactly the kind of guy that guy is, or his dating profile, or you send me a text thread or give me a 5-minute description of what's going on. I will tell you exactly what type of guy that is. because like once it's synced in my mind, I'm like, aha, I know exactly what's going on here. And yeah, hey, I may not know the backstory about how he became that way. And yes, like everybody, needs grace from others for their own shortcomings. I mean, certainly you gave that to me, but, it's just been one of the most sort of fascinating and revealing sort of journeys into the realm of human behavior and how people's relationships are structured. I find it, I love it. It's been fascinating. So
I'm like having this like surreal moment of just how many years I went with feeling like, will I ever find somebody that will understand me, understand this concept, understand and be able to just hearing you say the words is like a dream come true. It doesn't even matter how many times, how many different ways we talk about it, or I sat in front of, well, not this microphone, because you gave me this microphone for Christmas last year, but I sat in front of another Yeti microphone, which, if you don't, we call Iain the Yeti, because he is so tall. But another Yeti microphone, not knowing who you were, and telling girls to keep the faith that there is a guy out there for you that will understand you. And I always said I would not stop until I found somebody that understood my love for my girls.
Yeah.
I knew I'd get emotional. I was trying to hide it and trying to fight it because it's so important to me. And I would think like, I can't be with somebody who can't be with me in this part too, because I felt like I had to separate this part of my life so much. I know it's okay. I haven't cried on my podcast in a while, but I felt like I had to separate this part of my life and then do some kind of grand reveal. Like, oh, by the way, I talk about Gumball guys. And then it seemed like, oh, how is this ever going to work? How's anyone ever going to get this? And then just to be able to sit here and talk. I know it like might seem like, oh my gosh, this is the first time they've talked on a podcast, but we've been talking about Gumball Love, for all of 2021 and really in depth, because when we started building the quiz, that was such a huge contribution that you gave to Gumball Love. And it helped me have the confidence that, yes, these are 8 behaviors, and that skeptic and that devil's advocate in you was what I needed for you to say. Sometimes you were saying no, that like this behavior fits there, and I'd be like, oh yeah, you're right. But a lot of times you were telling me, no, you need to do this. This is what, yes, say that, say more of that. And when you were telling me to say more, it was like really being me and encouraging me to like be who I need to be and truly me, not something that I have to manufacture, and just to be able to relax and be in your own skin.
Isn't that what they say? When, you meet the love of your life, you'll know you can be completely comfortable. And not to give too much graphic detail about like, how comfortable we are together. But the other night,
God, I'm scared what it's going to say.
The other night when, I'd been working all day and, but I had not eaten anything.
Oh.
And so Melissa just gotten out of the shower and I hadn't eaten anything. So I'm laying in bed and I've got, I got a napkin, draped over.
Paper towel.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Paper towel, like underneath my neck, but I'm laying flat on my back and I'm eating a pre-cooked,
cold hamburger.
As we talked about, one of the particular coaching calls that she just had, and she's describing this situation.
And I'm not even really thinking about the fact that you've got a cold hamburger and a paper towel on your chest. I'm just like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm looking at you like, how comfortable are you feeling in a relationship right now?
It's like amazing. But, we're sitting there and actually like having an in-depth conversation about a particular situation between, this client of Melissa's and the situation. And, we just don't even think twice about that kind of thing. It's really cool. It's something that is so transformational to my life and for anyone that ever gets to experience it. But, true love is something that is so special, but trying to make sure, understanding the kind of guy you've been around in your past, the kind of guy that you've tolerated, that that you think is like, oh, he's the one, he's the everything, but then, take a step back and look at it, through, we're obviously going to be working on that quiz to get out to all the girls to kind of analyze, like, hey, does he do these things? And, when you look at, try to distance yourself a little bit from the story of, well, I said this and he said this and we did this and I did that and he did this. And then it's like, wait. What are the patterns of what he's doing? What are the recurring themes of how he acts? And when you can start to identify those and see them for the patterns that they are, they're very, you'll start to see very consistent behaviors occurring over and over again. And, that's like the light bulb moment when you have to start questioning, like, okay, what's really going on here? And, being a part of even coming up with, 1/10 of 1% of that and helping out has been something that's been really exciting for me. So,
yeah. And it's been such a help, and it really has shown me that you were such a huge piece of completing. There was always something that felt like it was missing with Gumball Love. And I think it was you being a part of it and applying the galaxy brain to the concepts and giving me the confidence in those flavors, because those flavors became the quiz, and the quiz will now be what helps people see, what is it that's going on with this guy? Why am I stuck? What is he doing? What is my fault? What's his fault? Like, how can I separate that? The quiz will liberate so many women from relationships, or just helping them understand. So that's why, just to kind of wrap up, I want people to know that that's why I've added you and into the coaching package that is available right now. And that girls that go through the 4-part series, you'll be a part of any, if they want you at all the sessions, we could do that too. But really there's one session that I'm calling it Borrow My Boyfriend, where you can sit down and have a guy's perspective. And some of my clients have been saying, like, yeah, it's kind of weird to talk to my friends' husbands or my friends' boyfriends, or like maybe like they were a gumball guy in their past, or it's an awkward conversation to have sometimes with your guy friends. Like, you now know my cousin's husband, Lee, Lee's great, but he's not going to sit there and be like, and here's what you should do about this guy, or really listen in depth. Because like, they're not relationship coaches. And so you can go and get perspective, and like, he would be a friend to me, but I didn't want to like sit there and force him to be my coach. And so it just, you can ask couples advice to a certain extent, but I wanted to offer that a dynamic with us so that people could, yes, get a guy's perspective, but also just having the opportunity to speak to a couple is something I never had to offer. And I would say, talk to healthy couples. So now they can sit with us, they can talk to you, and also know that through this podcast that we've both been through shit. We've been through hard times. You and I have had our hard times. We've worked through our own stuff that you have to you realize, wow, I've been to therapy, but I still have work to do. And so I've had to meet those things and, go through my Mrs. Woodlander phase, which I've already told people on the podcast.
Don't get out.
Yes. Where, yes, I thought Iain was texting another girl, and he was really looking at this magazine called, what is it, the Ontario Woodlander? Yes.
Yeah, it's magazine. Right, it's an email from my dad sending me about cultivating tree farms. And she's like, who is that? Who are you texting? And I'm
it was early on. I was terrified. I will admit, when you first moved here, I was just like, oh my God, like, what if this doesn't work? And all of my anxious and abandonment and all of the things that you can work on in therapy to a point. But then when you are actually in it and you have such a deep love and you feel like, if this person leaves, you are wrecked. And that feeling of no control is so it's so uncomfortable and terrifying that my brain would create all kinds of things. This is why I actually did the previous podcast to this. Is it your gut instinct? Is it your gut instinct or is it anxiety? And I had, I have terrible anxiety. And so I had to really be able to gain the tools to understand the difference between those.
Yeah.
And so,
that long-term damage of what previous relationships have done to you. And that could be, everything up to and including your first memory, your childhood, your family growing up, your, high school sweetheart, the guys you've dated along the way, all that accumulates to building that sort of, I won't call it attachment disorders, but, to building that level of anxiety into your, kind of like having to rewire your brain because you're like, oh, if I automatically think if it's fairly early in a relationship with a new guy, if I see him do a certain thing, you're like, oh, here we go again. It's just like that same stuff. But, people do need a little bit of grace, and you obviously have to try to live in reality too, but you don't want to try to sugarcoat like, okay, this guy's doing things that are really hurtful to me and he's doing them consistently. Don't take that from me as like permission to continue to allow him to act like that. But you do also, I think we all need to realize that, we're all like from a mindset standpoint in relationships, we're kind of like a sum total of our previous experiences. So, we react to what we have previously experienced. And if we see that kind of behavior, even if it's something that's vaguely familiar, but then you jump to a whole bunch of conclusions and next thing you know, everything is all blown out. So it's just kind of like that tragedy that you want to be able to wipe the slate clean with like a new guy, but he's probably trying to do the same thing too, maybe. So we all have our past issues to deal with, but
so I think the biggest thing I want to do for people is to help them. One, if you are single and you don't know what you want, you don't know what you need, that's where I was. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I needed. I didn't know where to even begin. Or if you're in a relationship and you don't know if this is the right person, you're trying to weigh it out, or you are facing online dating again, or you're going through a breakup, whatever it is, I've included Iain in the package, like I've said, so we have coaching available. We want to be able to help you and also do future podcasts. So as I was sitting here, I'm thinking, what is in your head right now? If you're here with us this long through this podcast, this will be one of the longer ones, but I wanted you to really get to know Iain through this process. What are you thinking? What do you want to know? What do you want to hear us talk about next? Because I'd like us to be doing more podcasts together, because I know I've been talking a lot, doing solo podcasts, which I know that a lot of you give me great feedback, but I get tired of hearing myself speak, and it's nice. I want you guys to hear the dynamic between the two of us and listen to how we debate out different topics. We don't agree on all of it, or we have different takes on different things. And so I want to know, what is it that you're struggling with? What would you like to hear us discuss? Email me, melissa@gumballlove.com. And if you have a question for Iain, you can email him at that address as well. Just address it to both of us. And any final thoughts, babe?
No, I guess great to meet the entire community.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. It's been very long-winded, and I apologize for the segues, the left and right, and the little vignettes out to the left field there for 10, 15 minutes at a time. But I think just overall, it's just been a blessing for me, not just with Melissa in my life and being able to move forward, but trying to help anybody out there who is like, the analogy I mentioned earlier is like you're cast adrift in the ocean, hanging onto your little life raft, and you're by yourself, and you're not sure which way is land, and you don't necessarily see that lighthouse beacon over the horizon yet. You're not sure which way to go. It's just you see other people floating around. They all look totally chaotic too, and you invite somebody onto your life raft and then they capsize you and then you're in the ocean. So just like overall, it's just really important for me to help Melissa as best I can, to help everyone else to find that lighthouse towards land and avoid the rocks and get through the pitfalls of being with just not good guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
It may not be like, they're inherently sociopathic, but they're people who will not change. And there's a lot of people who will not change. And so it's trying to identify what type of guy you're dealing with, maybe, current or past, and help you navigate your way towards safe harbor, because that's ultimately what we want. And safe harbor being, a true loving relationship with someone you want to share everything with, and that it's like a truly transformational thing. And it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to get yourself right and find out who you are and what you want, and not sort of get lost in the ocean with not knowing which way to go. So that's, the best I can kind of offer to help out as we talk about it. So
I love that. I love finding safe harbor. And we're just two people. We're not perfect, but I know there's a lot of people that need help. And so we just want to be a resource to you.
And don't listen to the other. I'm sorry, just to jump in here real quick. Melissa has shown me and played for me some of this garbage relationship coaching stuff that's out there. And I cannot believe that this type of nonsense, like these people actually have massive followings and people trusting their advice. It is total garbage. And
we'll get to like the bad. We should go through the bad dating advice, because he would be like, I think that
I was like, a million people follow this guy. 300,000 people follow this person, and this is what they're telling you. This is crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's just nice to have. There are a few. There are some really good coaches out there, and that's where the ones I really try to encourage our girls to have in their feed. But yeah, we need to call this out so we can tell the difference between clickbait and really good advice. So yeah, that was a huge thing. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want more information or to schedule a private coaching session, or better yet, to join the next Back to You Academy, go to gumballlove.com. If you loved this podcast, I would love for you to share it with your friends. And if you really loved it, a 5-star review is the best compliment you can give. Remember, you are enough, you are right where you should be, and the only thing you have to do is keep going. I'll leave you with my favorite quote by Henry David Thoreau. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams and live the life you have imagined. Until next time, I'll see you soon.